I'm Dr. Darshana Joshi. I'm a physicist and a first generation learner from Uttarakhand. Born in a family of low income farmers in Uttarakhand, I spent my childhood years in Uttarakhand, growing up in the foothills of Himalayas in Almora. Because agriculture became unsustainable, my parents had to migrate to Delhi to work as an electrician with municipal corporation, and my mother assumed the role of homemaker while in Delhi. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood in Delhi and attended the municipal corporation schools in Delhi. One turning point that came in my life, which defined the trajectory for the rest of my life, was when I got selected for one of the special schools run by Delhi government called Pratibha Vikas Vidyalaya for children who were doing academically well in these primary schools. A company of exceptional teachers in these schools sort of shaped my aspiration to do well in science and to chart a trajectory of excellence in science. I have been a good student throughout my academic path, from all the way from primary until I finished my school. And as I said, my parents, they were both farmers, and they themselves hadn't finished school, but they placed a great emphasis on our education and encouraged us to do the best that we could. And I think essentially it was this upbringing with a culture of excellence in the school that pushed me to do well. And we had some amazing teachers, our science teacher in the middle school, her name was Sadaf ma'am, and she sort of instilled the love for science in me, followed by two very passionate physics teachers who taught me. And it was in class 11th, I remember, when I decided that I want to do physics, not engineering, not medicine, but physics. And this is a very interesting story how that came about. So we had a wonderful library in school. It was the library sort of that opened the gateway for a brilliant world of science out there. And our school librarian, she had just subscribed to something called Resonance, the Journal of Science Education from Indian Academy of Science. And I read an article by Professor Rohini Godbole there about the 2004 Nobel Prize in Physics, which was like Nobel for a minus sign. And there was a small photograph of Rohini Godbole on the bottom in a sari. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is how scientists can actually look like. It was so relatable. I felt she just looks like my mother. And if she can be a scientist, perhaps I can be a physicist too. And that's when I decided that, okay, I want to study particle physics and I want to become a physicist, which of course those choices changed as exposure increased in life. But the love for physics and the passion for physics remained same. A few things that the school gave me was company of some exceptional peers who were equally driven. And I think it's the tribe that sort of instilled this love and sustained this love for physics. And, three of us, like close friends, we are scientists working in different parts of the country. So, so that's one of the defining moments of how I, walked this path and how the foundation for this path was laid early on. Brilliant science teachers, amazing peers, and a very, very good library, which opened the doorway to world for us. After that, I went to Miranda House, University of Delhi, College for Women, and I did my physics honors there. Again, an amazing institution with some of the exceptional teachers that we met there, and an emphasis on excellence as well as exposure is what made this whole Miranda experience very unique. I was really fortunate to meet some of the mentors who shaped my thought process. Our college principal, Dr. Pratibha Joshi, is one such amazing physics administrator and a teacher. Then my professor there who taught us mechanics, Professor Rita Chandra, she in fact, supported me even, financially when I was going through some difficult times. And so that's been another emphasis of the tribe, as I say, how it laid the foundation for who I am today. After doing my BSc, I went to Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bangalore, one of the country's premier science institution, to do an integrated PhD in material science. And so there again, I this chance encounter with country's leading physicist, Shobna Narasimhan, whom I had met during my Miranda House days, basically defined the trajectory for my career. And she encouraged me to sort of explore, beyond what was within reach. And along with her, another brilliant mentor, Professor Umesh Wagmare, they both stood by me and they encouraged me to, not just look at JNC, as a comfort place, but also think of it as a stepping stone for the rest of my life. And encouraged by them, I applied for a PhD in physics at the University of Cambridge, and I got through. And I did my PhD there. And while at Cambridge, not just PhD, but I got actively involved with doing a lot of outreach activities. And we started VigyanShaala, which was then just a collection of volunteers from across the world who were driven to bring exciting hands-on science to Indian classrooms. And that's how the foundation for VigyanShaala was laid at Cambridge. Another interesting thing that happened at Cambridge was when I won the election for becoming the president of its postgraduate students union. I was the first Indian woman to win that election in the last 800 years of Cambridge's existence, as well as last 80 years of the union's existence. And that gave me an entry to represent the student voices in the University Council, which is the highest decision-making body, and the board of trustees, like serve as a board of trustee of the university. And that's where I learned, how we can make a global impact through our presence in an age-old institution like Cambridge. And that sort of solidified my conviction that instead of being a professor and sitting in a lab researching on my niche area of interest, I want to decentralize science and bring every college in the country on research map of India. And that's how my partner and we sort of paused our research careers and came back to India, started VigyanShaala as a trust. And in the last 3 years, we have impacted over 250 girls from 80 different districts of India, from 18 states, as well as we are building innovation spaces in the hills of Uttarakhand, building a unique model of science education for Himalayan geographies, which can be then expanded to other Himalayan states, as well as the entire Himalayan Hindu Kush belt, like Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar as well. So that's what we are building, these two unique ecosystems, one for accelerating the girls who are pursuing science at undergraduate level, as well as building a model for these Himalayan states. So to answer how this pivots back to who I was and how I grew up, I think the pain of migrating from wonderful hills of Uttarakhand to lead literally, slightly second-class life in a cramped-up space in Delhi with pollution and all, sort of burned deep inside. And I was like, there was a desire to do something for communities that are off the development grid, and I really wanted to make a difference in terms of education as well as innovation. So that's how VigyanShaala came into being. We are driven by a belief that everyone deserves the opportunity to create a better world through science. And I think it's about time that we diversify scientific workforce by bringing these fresh minds to the table. So that's what we are trying to do at VigyanShaala. Another thing, as I mentioned, my parents didn't finish school, and my journey in science was a resultant of some amazing, tribe that I was part of, and the mentors that I had a chance encounter with. So we don't want to leave it to chance for other aspiring, committed and talented young people out there. We want to bring the mentors and the scientific opportunities to them through our work at VigyanShaala. So that's why we do what we do at VigyanShaala. Talking of personal milestone first, I think few things that come to my mind that's been consistent in my journey is persistence, tribe, and a commitment, I would say. And this has basically brought these milestones in personal journey. So when I was in class 11th, I was fortunate to be selected by a Delhi-based NGO called VigyanCare for their VigyanShaala program for girls coming from low-income families. I think that was one of the biggest personal milestones for me, as being part of VigyanShaala family, where we had girls coming from different parts of Delhi with similar background, but a very aspirational outlook towards life. That sort of gave me a hope that there are other people out there like me who have a difficulty in personal life but are all aspiring. And I think that sort of fueled my passion. Udyan Care has stood with me all these years, even when we started VigyanShaala. So I think that's a big personal as well as professional milestone, because I think the emphasis and the confidence that Udyan Care brought to me translated into my family life as well. So, for example, I said I came from a conservative family. My parents were very skeptical in sending me to Bangalore when it came for my master's, and they were like, "Hey, today you are asking you want to go to Bangalore, and tomorrow you will say I want to go to US and UK. Bhej denge kya? Would we send you then?" And it's the mentors from Udyan Care, they negotiated, and my brother and all these people stood by me, and that's how I was able to navigate those challenges. And like, when we think of women in STEM, we don't think that how even a supportive family can actually become a roadblock to a girl's journey. And I think the same thing my parents were experiencing, but this personal association with Udyan Care sort of helped them. So personal milestone would be my parents also expanded their world as it came as I walked each mile. I think personally, jumping from a stable research career into entrepreneurship is another personal milestone. It took a lot of courage. I didn't think I had that courage in me to walk uncharted territory, but being married to an exceptionally supportive physicist husband sort of made it easier. We both decided to take the plunge together, and we were like, I think we can build VigyanShaala together because we both have very complementary skills. So that was very interesting milestone. Apart from that, another personal milestone is when I went to Cambridge, I was awarded the Schlumberger Foundation Fellowship for Women from Developing Countries. And that made me part of an exceptional global community of women from 89 different countries, to learn from their experiences and to grow with them in science and to share their learning of how we are changing the landscape for women in science in India has been a very rewarding experience. So that's another personal milestone, I would say, that I'm quite proud of. Profession. Okay, yeah, one last I would say personal milestone is when my parents traveled to UK for my graduation, and when we graduate in Cambridge, the graduate walks out first, and then when all the graduates have walked out, the parents come out at the last. And when my parents came, they both came and they hugged me, and we all broke into tears. And I think that day in my living memory is one of the happiest days of my life. And even in my wildest dreams, in a municipal corporation school in Delhi, or even in Miranda House, that I had not thought that one day I will be graduating with a PhD degree from one of the most coveted universities in the world. Yeah, that meant a lot. And I think, yeah, it was that moment that gives me a lot of strength and courage to dream, similar trajectories for the students we are mentoring from some of the most marginalized backgrounds. So talking of professional milestones, I think when I won the election for graduate union at University of Cambridge against a British opponent and a British male opponent. So I didn't think I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't think, because if I didn't think, I wouldn't contest, right? So, but it was an interesting election. And as the ballot closed and I see the flash in the varsity newspaper that Darshana Joshi wins graduate union presidency, that was interesting and very emotional as well. And the exposure that it gave me, because I was not just leading Graduate Union, which was an independent charity, but I also got to serve as a trustee of Cambridge University for a year, which was an exceptional experience. I got to work with the Vice Chancellor and the Pro Vice Chancellor for Education of Cambridge. And it has changed my outlook towards what global institutions can actually do to, alleviate global poverty or meet sustainable development goals. So I think it was a very, very life-changing and interesting and inspiring experience, and a great personal, professional milestone, I would say. Yeah, so that's all. Thinking of influencers who've influenced my interpersonal and professional journey, uh, I think I would say it's my tribe that has sort of impacted me the most, which in school meant my colleagues who were very, very driven towards science. We would come and discuss new things that we learned. And in sharing those things, we were multiplying our knowledge. So I think that was pretty inspiring. But another great influence that I had was when I went to Miranda House. Being part of an exclusive all-women college, I made two very, very close friends, Srishti Arora and Renu Tomar. And three of us came from families where we were first generation learners. The biggest dreams our parents could think of were do a BSc, do a BEd, become a teacher. I mean, I'm not saying there's any harm in being a teacher, but I think teaching is a great profession. But at the same time, by telling girls to become teachers, we limit their aspirations of, I would say, globetrotting in our thing. So three of us together stuck by each other, defied our parents. It's interesting. Like, as I said, there was a chance encounter with Professor Shobna Narasimhan during our undergrad days, and she offered an internship, and she just had one internship, and she said, I will try to get two more, and let's see if we can get you to Bangalore. And there's another professor who agreed to interview one of us, but then we had one confirmed internship, one sort of acceptance, and nothing for the third one. Luckily, Renu's father was posted in Air Force in Bangalore. So we told our families, hey, we got an internship in Bangalore and we want to go to Bangalore. We didn't tell them what was the scenario. And I think for 18 years old, that was a very, very brave choice. Back in 2008, we booked a ticket. All three of us boarded the train with Renu's family to Bangalore. And once we reached Bangalore, that's when we opened up. Hey, we have one internship, which Srishti is going to join with Shobna, another interview, which Renu will do, and a third open possibility. But in Bangalore, we had all these interesting research institutions. So I said, okay, let's go to RRI and let's knock on every door. And Raman Research Institute was very kind to let us in. I went and met, I think, 12 professors that day. And by 3 p.m., I had an internship to work in soft condensed matter lab in Raman Research Institute. And I think that made a big difference. And I think that was my entry to research. And I did a PhD in soft condensed matter later on. So similarly, Renu also got an internship at Raman Research Institute later on. So had we not been slightly bold enough and manipulated our way out or negotiated our way out, it wouldn't have been possible. And I think two of them are my biggest influencer and biggest inspiration, I would say. Today, three of us have PhDs in physics from one of the best universities in the world. Renu and Srishti both won Marie Curie Fellowship for doing their PhDs in France and Belgium, and I did my PhD in Cambridge University. So I think that's what tribe can do, and that's how tribe can influence you if you are surrounded by people who uplift you rather than pulling you down. So thinking of incidents that have stuck by me in defining who I am today, I would say the role a role model can play in your life is super important. So we met Shobna, who is a leading theoretical physicist based at Jawaharlal Nehru Center in Bangalore. So we met her when we were in our second year in Delhi University, and her affection in sharing, her experiences in this conference on women in science, and extending an invitation to us, hey, you too can be part of this tribe, holding that door for us meant a lot. Had she not held that door, had she not given us invitation to come and be part of, the research community, thriving research community in Bangalore, our dreams for ourselves would have been very, very different from what they were at that particular point, right? It sort of, accelerated our journey by putting these rockets on, both ends. So I think when senior women in science, they hold the door for younger women, aspiring girls who have no clarity of where life is going to take them, I think means a lot. For us, it completely transformed our journey, her support, her mentoring all these years. So, and now whatever three of us are doing in our, or whatever I'm doing, is in a way tribute to people like Shobna. Another thing that has stuck by me is, so when I was going to Cambridge, I got scholarship for going to Cambridge, but my travel and visa was not covered. So, and unfortunately at that particular point of time, my father hadn't received his salary for almost 10 months from municipal corporation. And that's when my professor from Miranda House, she learned that I was going. She calls me and gives me a check of 50,000 and says, "Hey Darshana, keep this check, convert this into pounds. You will need it when you land in England." So I go, I come back after a year, having saved some money from my stipend. I go back to Professor Rita Chandra and I say, "Ma'am, I would like to return these 50,000 to you. You gave it to me." And she and her husband, they both refused. They're like, "No, we are not taking this back. This is what we had to do for you. Now you pay it forward." And I broke down into tears and I was like, "Ma'am, this is like my father's half year salary. I can't keep it." She's like, "No, this is now yours. You do whatever you want to do with it." And in a way, that 50,000 rupees is the first investment in VigyanShaala from someone. So, and yeah, so paying it forward has stuck with me. Um, and I'm very proud to have such amazing mentors who have influenced my thought, who've given beyond their might, and who continue to inspire me to push and give beyond what I have. I think success to me not just means you excelling, but you lifting others with you. My first forays into mentoring were when I was in my first year of PhD. I started mentoring this brilliant girl from the hills of Uttarakhand. She was pursuing masters in college in Dehradun, a government college in Dehradun, and she was a bit clueless because she did her bachelor's in Delhi and then went to Dehradun, wasn't sure where she's going. And we started talking. We got her introduced into science outreach and all. And on 30th of April, she defended her PhD in soft condensed matter, already has a job even before she finished her PhD, got some amazing publications in the field. I think to be able to hold that door for other women in science, I think is what success means to me. I wouldn't have entered this exclusive community if there weren't other women who lifted me on their shoulders and others who opened the doors and held the doors for me. I think to be able to lift others, to be able to grow together and to be able to hold the doors for them is what true success means to me. Failures, I think failure is a very subjective term. We may tend to think that every time we didn't get anything sort of meant a failure, but I think, okay, I'll be honest, I don't have a definition for failure because I am someone who never gave up even in the most difficult circumstances. I was like, okay, let's try one more time. uh, so it's very difficult for me to define failure. So as for the lessons learned on this journey, I think the first one that stands out the most is we grow better when we grow together. So if you have a tribe cheering for you and growing with you every time you are walking that extra mile, the journey doesn't seem lonely. So it's really, really important that you surround yourself with people who bring positivity, confidence, and conviction in what you are doing, and with whom you can share that positivity, conviction, and confidence, and not the people who are pulling you down. Of course, the people who are pulling you down also play roles in your life. They teach you some valuable lessons, but I think being surrounded with a community is something super, super important. I think the power of persistence is another very, very important lesson that I learned, that you, even in the most difficult circumstances, trying one more time, just one more time, can make a big difference. Even in my PhD, when I was going through a very difficult uh, period, when I had tried this particular experiment some 90 plus times, almost a year, and I was like, oh man, I just want to give up on this. And I think trying one last time with a new set of parameters made a difference, and it took my research where it was, and I did have some good publications in some of the best journals out there. So also, like the work that we are trying to do now, accelerating the aspiring girls in science to successful STEM careers, and STEM pathways to higher education, is a tough route, and I think we need all hands on deck when we are solving these challenges. We need allies, we need people who can be your mouthpieces. So I think communicating what you are doing with the wider world is super important in today's world. You may never know where the help will come from, right? So I think sharing what you know, what are the best practices with you, what you've learned, and learning, being open to learning from wherever that learning is coming from, is very, very, very important. And these are the top three lessons I would say that I've learned. Yes, being a woman, there were challenges that I think if I were a boy I wouldn't have faced. First one being the resistance from family in changing cities, but once I changed the cities, changing countries was easier. So it came out naturally. But I think winning that first battle against family is super important, particularly if you're coming from North India. I'm not so sure how difficult it is in the South, but because I've worked with girls from all over India, I feel that roughly like there may be 49-51 kind of a dynamics, but it's all the same for girls out there. Girls from even some of the most affluent and progressive families face challenges. So that's one thing. And apart from that, like so I've been in a lab in India where there were all men, including the supervisor, and it was difficult. It was difficult not to be taken seriously at times. It was difficult to be treated differently. It was difficult because you didn't understand sometimes the inside jokes and all. And sadly, the way Indian academia works today is super exclusive. I think they need to make it more, and not just exclusive, but also unidirectional. So the emphasis on including people from a wider background, and also giving people a wider exposure while they are doing their just PhDs, is super important. And I think I did face a lot of challenges in there. I don't want to go into details as of now. I think the day I'll be ready to share those details, I would do. But yeah, it was difficult, but thankfully I had support from two of the most brilliant mentors in JNC, Jawaharlal Nehru Center, Shobhana and Umesh Vakmare. So they helped me a lot. So I think challenges are there, but also there are very supportive people out there who, if you manage to reach out to, will help you. So yeah, I think those challenges were less when I went to England. The university and the scientific community as a whole was more open and accepting, and it was a different experience. So yes, talking of the impact, the social impact my work at VigyanShaala is doing. So we run two programs. One is called the Rural STEM Champions Program, where we are building a unique model for STEM education in the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, and we aspire to accelerate that model to different Himalayan states in next 5 years' time. There we are picking some of the brightest young people from remotest colleges in the country and pairing them with global mentors, giving them training, access to innovation spaces where they can not just have exposure to exciting research out there, but also build innovation that can solve some of the challenges that their communities are facing. And there we work directly with the colleges. We are trying to bring institutional level transformation in the colleges so that there is a culture of research that gets incubated in these colleges, and they come up on the research map of the country. So far, we have piloted this program at one college in Uttarakhand, and this year we have now expanded to 4 other colleges in Pithoragarh and Champawat districts of Uttarakhand. And this is still a work in progress. So I think my favorite impact story from these colleges is like girls and boys who didn't even know what a computer looks like. I mean, they hadn't touched a computer ever in their life almost a year ago. Today they come and tell me, hey, we are building a drone to map biodiversity in our region, and we want to monitor forest fires with the drones that we will build. And I was overjoyed when I heard that. So I didn't expect that it will come so fast. I knew we will get there maybe in 3 years' time, but to reach there in 1 year's time sort of strengthens my conviction and uh, my belief in the transformative power science can have for these remote communities. So that's one project that we are doing at VigyanShaala. The other program is called Kalpana Chief STEM. So where we are working directly with undergraduate girls from all across India. This is a virtual mentoring cum training program where we are building a community of aspiring young girls in science and pairing them with mentors and opportunities out there so that they can make the decision about their next step in science, right? Whether they want to go for a higher education or a job in STEM fields, we will help them navigate that transition. And you may wonder, why do I want to work with undergraduates and not schoolgirls? Because India has one of the highest enrollments of girls in STEM at undergraduate level globally. Like we are at 45%, but our translation into workforce is 15%. So that means every 2 out of 3 girls that study science does not make it to the workforce. And with Kalpana, we want to pair them with inspirational role models and mentors who will help them make that transition, navigate personal circumstances, and be the best in STEM that they can. And so far through Kalpana, we have mentored 250 girls from 80 plus districts across India, from 18 states. These girls were mentored by about 40 mentors from 10 different countries across the globe. And of course, all of them were Indian so far, but they were based across 10 countries. So in this program, Kalpana, we have been able to, decentralize mentoring to a large extent. And now in Kalpana also, we have incorporated a lab at home research concept. So we want that every girl be able to pick a research problem. She can pursue that research problem with frugal resources in a corner in her house and contribute to the citizen science movement in India. So these are the two things that we are doing. And apart from this, the third impact that we have had is we've studied the STEM education landscape very extensively in Uttarakhand through our extensive travels to 100 plus last mile schools, in the Himalayas like Pauri, Rudraprayag, and Tiri districts. And we've documented the challenges, and we are working closely with the state government to bring out policy level changes that can contribute towards enhancing the participation of women in science in the state. That's a tricky question, but at the same time, I think this is something very deeply wired in the blood of lower middle class in India, particularly like the community that I grew up, whether in Delhi or in Uttarakhand. We lived a life very, very close association with nature. My mother or her contemporaries in Delhi and Uttarakhand literally recycled everything to the tea that they could, right? Any glass jar that came in the house as a jam bottle or as any other bottle, they were repurposed. like all the time. I never saw even a single glass bottle or a plastic bottle being thrown out of our houses. And I think till today, when I'm living in Pune, I continue to do that. So much so that my husband sometimes calls me a kabadi, which means a rat picker. So, but yeah, I think that's one thing that I do. Apart from that, I've been very mindful of my usage of single-use plastics. So I personally don't buy much chips or confectionaries and all, because I feel that the largest producers of plastics are FMCGs in the country. And I think we need to, you know, start looking at more sustainable alternates to them. Much of the need that the FMCGs have created in the country are not needs at all. Like, you know, so yeah, so we need to be careful about what we consume. And I think I'm conscious about what I'm consuming. Yeah, those would be the two things I would say, and I hope that answers your question. Or maybe I would tell it to a slightly younger Darshana, say 14-year-old Darshana, is exercise. I think that's one thing that I never valued more. I used to be a very, very active person because I'm a Pahadi girl, so we used to play, run a lot. But as class 10th came, I so all of a sudden became very busy with my studies and all the stress around it. And I think that contributed to a lot to, you know, the part about my life that I really need to correct at this stage. You know, that ignorance about not paying enough attention to physical activities. What started back then has continued till now, and I'm struggling really hard to sort of, you know, maintain my weight, or struggling with polycystic ovaries, for example. So had somebody told me, hey Darshana, as much studying or being focused towards your goal is important, equally important is to pay you know, respect to your body by doing enough physical activity and exercising and playing, I think that would have been important. And I think this is an advice I would like to give to every young girl out there, that nothing is more important than your future, and exercising and being physically active is part of building a sustainable and a healthy future. So yeah, respect your body, exercise, and eat healthy. Don't get fooled by what the TVs and the McDs and the Burger Kings of the world want to show you. If I could go back, relive, redo, or undo some aspect of my life, I think, as I said, undoing would be to not give up on physical activity, to be equally active as I was as a 12-year-old. I think that's something I would pick up. I decided to be more active only when I went to, you know, Cambridge, or when I was in Bangalore. So I think it was yeah, it was slightly late, and I'm still lazy. Till date I'm very lazy about it. So I think that's one thing, if I could undo, it would be that, like, you know, I would like to be very, very active all over again, as my mother as a party woman is, or as I was once upon a time. If I could redo something, it would again be that trip to Bangalore with two of my best friends, which sort of redefined what career meant to three of us. And I wouldn't say redefined, but which actually defined what career meant for us, and what it could mean for anybody else out there. I wouldn't, yeah, trade that experience for anything else. So my big vision for the work that I do is twofold. One, to have a global community of aspiring young girls out there. And I think we are heading in that direction right now, where girls from Africa, America, or Latin America, Europe can collaborate with the girls sitting in South Asia and build solutions that can define what sustainable development would mean, not just for their communities, but for the globe as a whole. Similarly, my other vision, which I mean, of course, incorporates Himalayas, because I was born and raised there for a part of my childhood. So is sustainable Himalayas, where the mountains are not struggling with the waste that every time tourists go and throw, where the young people from these remote communities are building innovations that are deeply rooted in the traditional knowledge that these communities hold, and not the definition of super development by cities, I would say. um, and yeah, I think where local innovation is powering global development is the vision that I hold for science as well as the work that I do. Two people, my mother and my partner. So my partner, because he sort of understood the importance of the dreams that I was harboring, and took them as a mission of his life as well. And together we are building VigyanShaala. And I think you need strong allies in whatever you do. And so that's my strength. And as an inspiration, it would be my mother, her resilience, and I think my father's commitment. So yeah, so they fuel much of what I aspire to do on an everyday basis. So recently my parents visited, both of them visited our project site in Uttarakhand, where we were interviewing students for our next cohort of STEM champions. And they were so proud that we were able to share the abundance and the opportunities that came our way. So I think that pride meant a lot, because until now they were a bit clueless, as in why did we sort of pause our flourishing careers and traveling around like banjaras. So I think it's yeah, so their commitment and persistence, perseverance sort of helps. I like to do hill walking. So in Pune, we are lucky to have small Western Ghats nearby. So me and my husband, we sometimes drive slightly outside of Pune and we do hill walking and spend time in the middle of nature. That helps, like just looking at beautiful birds. During the lockdown, we we planted a lot of plants in our balcony, which are giving some beautiful flowers right now. So that's also another interesting self-care for me to sort of spend that time. And I think the first thing that I do as soon as I get up from bed, as soon as I open my eyes, is meditate for 15 minutes. I don't even use restroom. I just sit on my bed and I meditate, and just focusing on breath, just doing some Brahmari and all. And I think that helps. I think that aligns me for the rest of the day. And I've picked up that meditation. Like, I like meditation. I was doing it on and off over these years, but in the last 6 months I've become very disciplined about it, and that has brought a lot of change in the way I look. And the last thing would be, I run to the Himalayas in Uttarakhand. That's my best self-care. Every once in 3 months I have to go. So yeah, so I enjoy that time out. Okay. Crazy and out of the box would be, I wanted to do scuba diving when I was in Europe with my best buddies, but I didn't do that. So PhD stress picked up and I was just overwhelmed. I didn't do that, but I think at this stage, one thing that I want to do is, I envision a very interesting campus somewhere in the Himalayas. I don't know where it will be, but it will be a living laboratory where people will come, stay with us, pursue the problems that they want to. It will be open to any student from anywhere in the world, and they could come, spend time, pursue ecological problems, build sustainable solutions, and design basically a world that they want with the help of science. So yeah, that's the crazy vision that I hold dear to my heart right now. As of now, I think it is in Uttarakhand, but yeah, it may be any part of the world. Who knows, like where life will take. So